I am here with the one and only Gary Yourofsky, lecturer, educator, and activist. Gary, thanks for joining me and welcome back.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. It's nice to meet you, Michelle, and your kitty cats that I think are running around.
I got one dog and one cat here with
One
me.
dog, one cat. Okay.
They're my co-hosts.
I just see tails, so I wasn't sure who was who.
Yeah, you can't tell from the tail, right? Yeah. Okay, so good. We're talking about animals already. Let's start. I know that one of your main goals right now is to help Sasha Farm Sanctuary. So tell us about Sasha Farm Sanctuary located in Michigan and how people can help.
It's a beautiful paradise, the Garden of Vegan. It's a place where animals can be themselves. They're all given a name, and it's a place where I've been decompressing for the last 30 years. I've been going there that long. That's how long I've been vegan. And they're in trouble right now because the owner is demanding that we buy the property, the 50 acres that it's on. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in dire straits. Sasha always brings in 250 a year, which is what they need to run the place. You see, I'm an open book. I'll talk about anything openly and honestly, but the owner is demanding that we pay 675,000 for the 50 acres of land. It's a fair market price, unfortunately. He also took out 250 from the coffers as a down payment. So we are behind the eight ball. And if we don't get enough donations, oh, I don't want to think what could happen. Don't worry. I'm not trying to scare people. The animals will be safe. We would just have to transfer them somewhere else. And I don't want to have to put these animals on a truck. Animals are smart. I'm tired of people thinking that they're stupid. They're cognizant. They're aware. They know that when they get on a truck, they usually don't come back. So I don't want to stress them out. So I'm asking people, please go to sashafarm.org, make a donation. Again, it's a wonderful paradise. If you're in the area, you can call and set up an appointment to come and volunteer. And I'm always there every year at the Spring Social, which happens once a year. And there's many other events. And people need to start supporting sanctuaries in general as well. There's this horrible thing in the movement right now where people think it's a waste of money. I say, bullshit. Are you kidding me? If we're going to spend our time, and we do, convincing people to be kind to animals and save animals and not harm animals, some animals are going to need a home. So sanctuaries are essential to this movement, even if they're not engaging in education-based activism. And I think education, obviously, from what I've done, is the most important thing. But sometimes charity is just charity, and sometimes animals just need a place to stay. So support Sasha Farm, support your local sanctuary, and also go and volunteer, because that's something I've been doing for 30 years. They always need help. You got to clean up the place. You got to feed the animals. You got to water the animals. You got to play with the animals. They like to be played with too. Give them some treats. There's nothing as pleasurable as giving an apple or a carrot to a cow or a horse. It's just wonderfully relaxing. And I'll say this too about all the vegans who haven't been to a sanctuary. It's really weird to me that a lot of vegans never go and see the animals that they're helping. Spend some time with the chickens and the turkeys to see how they live and how they act and how wonderful they are. So please get to a sanctuary. And again, if it's not Sasha Farm, do your local sanctuary.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree that sanctuaries are transformative. I can't imagine how they wouldn't be for anybody wouldn't be changed by going even one time to make eye contact with these beautiful beings. And they speak for themselves, they show us what's possible. They show us a world that we don't have yet, but that we are aspiring to. And I volunteer regularly at sanctuaries. And I think maybe fortunately here in the New York, New Jersey, Philly area, the sanctuary community is wonderfully sort of tight and collaborative and supportive of one another, as well as the activism community. So I'm really grateful that we do have that there. But we want folks to know that sanctuaries are not farms. Animals are never bred or sold. That's the difference. That's one of the differences between a sanctuary and a farm or a petting zoo. But it's the only place where you'll meet old animals, where they get to live out their natural lives. So maybe you could say a little bit more in terms of sanctuary's role in a vegan world. In my dream, what if all the subsidies to animal ag were rerouted to big animal to sanctuaries? I
That would be
gladly, I
that would be a
gladly,
lovely day.
I'd
That
be
would
happy
be
to pay my taxes then.
absolutely. And I can't tell you, Michelle, how many people I've taken to Sasha Farm over the years. It's a great place to take somebody who's closed-minded, who's unaware, who's ignorant. I used to bring people from the gym where I work out. I'm like, you got to come with me today. We're going to go meet some animals. And I make them go up to the pig. I go, you go pet that pig because that's the bacon that you're eating. You go look in his eye and you tell him that it's okay and justified. And they break down in tears. It's a great place to take people to so they can see the animals. There was one guy I took there. How strange is this? He actually says, I can't believe the noises they make. I said, what do you mean, Marcus? He said, I thought that was just cartoons. I can't believe chickens and turkeys really make those noises and cows really move. And this is how disconnected everybody is from the animal kingdom. And I've always been upset when people would tell me animals are stupid. And I know you've heard this too. As vegans, we always hear, oh, animals are stupid. Well, over the years, I started questioning people back. I said, I'm curious. So how many pigs and cows do you know?
Mm.
They'd freeze. I said, answer the question. How many pigs and cows can you call friends? Because I literally know hundreds of them. And I've known hundreds over the years, and they're not how you describe them. They're brilliant in their own ways. Just because they're simple doesn't mean they're stupid. They're brilliant in their own ways. They don't need technology. They don't need a cell phone. They don't need air conditioning. They don't need a computer. They are brilliant when it's too hot. They find shade. When it's too cold, they find warmth. When they're hungry, they go eat some food. When they're thirsty, they find some water. When they want to play, they jump around and mess around with each other. In fact, most people have an affinity for dogs and cats. I got to tell you, the cows, pigs, chickens, and turkeys I've met are no different than the dogs and cats. They love some love. They love their bellies rubbed. They want to be played with, but keep this in mind too when you go to a sanctuary. And I think you kind of intimated this. They're not there for us. So if they want to come up to you, play with them. If they don't, let them be. You can try to lure them with food, of course, and I always do it too because I want to get a little kiss or a little pet. But if they don't want to come up, you just have to move on to the next one who might want to come up and say hi and lick your face. How about that? Getting licked by a cow? They got some big tongues too. And so sanctuaries are essential. Again, I just have to say this, and it would be great if they can get more funding. From I don't care where it's from the government, from private donors. To me, right now, it's going to fall on the vegan community. As vegans, this is on us. If we're going to demand that animals aren't harmed, then we have to save the ones who have been saved,
Yeah.
who have been fortunate enough not to be in a slaughterhouse, fortunate enough not to be in some horrible situation. Help the sanctuaries. SashaFarm.org. And by the way, I'm not a fundraiser, so it's always kind of awkward for me. I always feel awkward in this part of the podcast because I was always an activist. So listen, I wouldn't be asking for it if Sasha Farm did not need it.
No, absolutely, 100%, 100%. It's essential to keep, it's some of the hardest work in the world, people who operate sanctuaries, boots to the ground every day with the animals. And so it's essential that we support them so they can support the animals, essential for animal liberation. And I love that you're, giving us the image in our minds of animals as individuals, of course, just like us, with personalities and a desire to survive and thrive.
They're all unique too. Honestly, all the pigs are different from each other. All the chickens are different from each other. And we always think, oh, they're all the same. No, they're just like every other creature you find, just like the dogs and the cats. Some dogs are friendly, some dogs are not. Some cats are curious, some are not. And same thing with the animal kingdom. All the animals are individuals, and we need to respect that. We need to start seeing them as individuals. And that's part of the problem with the abuse that goes on, the exploitation. We just don't see them anymore for who they are. In fact, most people don't even see a cow for a cow anymore. They see the cow as a briefcase, as a hamburger, and that's the crime. That is the ultimate horrible crime, is objectifying somebody else and thinking that that creature was put on this planet for you. It's a selfish position. It's mean. It's vicious, and it's indecent. And especially when humans are walking around claiming to be moral beings, which I challenge wholeheartedly. I think we're the most immoral beings to ever disgrace this earth. I don't know why it started, when it started, but right now we are a scourge to this earth. And the best way to eliminate that scourge and to change our ways is to live vegan, is to start opening up your circle of compassion and letting others in. It's a really simple thing that we can do. Everyone's capable. You're doing it. I'm doing it. There are millions of people around the world that are doing it. And that's what I love about vegans. We're the only group on this planet doing something altruistically. This is pure
Yeah.
altruism. We don't get anything in return. In fact, we don't even know the victims that we're saving. That's how magnanimous we are as vegans. And I'm tired of people making us seem like we're crazy and we're outlandish. We are the sane ones. It is everyone else walking around with blood and flesh and veins and muscles, flowing through their bodies in their refrigerators. Wake up, everybody who isn't vegan. Take that step. Change your life today and change somebody else's life.
Absolutely, right? Just it's backwards. The idea that living without harming another sentient being is extreme is just that's how far the pendulum has swung, and this is the work we have ahead of us, and we're definitely imploring people to listen. But let's go from there because currently you're in Germany. And so I don't know, I'm curious, so like what's the vibe? How is it there? You're doing like marathon, I think, cubes with Anonymous for the Voiceless, I believe, like back to back for a month. I'm not sure if I'm right, but tell folks if you want who AV are and the format, why it works, because it's sort of proven to work well. And what's your long-term relationship or history with AV? And you're getting to hang with Paul Bashir, right?
Yeah, Paul
How's it
Bashir and
going?
I go way back. He's actually one of my disciples, which I hear there's a lot these days. I didn't realize anyone was listening, so it's so nice to see as I came out of retirement to hear all these Gary vegans and Gary vegan activists all over the world. I didn't realize people were listening. I was in my own world doing my lectures, focusing on those classrooms. But Paul Bashir created Anonymous for the Voiceless with a Saul, his ex-girlfriend. In fact, she's supposed to show up, I think, at the end of the month. And they are an education-based street activist group, which I love. I love when it's education-based. And what's funny and cute is that they actually condensed my 70-minute speech down into 3 minutes. This is their whole format. This is the paradigm, is to make people accountable, put them in the victim's position. I mean, these are all things that I did in my speech. And I'll be honest, I feel out of place now because I took my street protest to the classroom in 2000. That was 25 years ago. I feel out of place. They took my classroom presentations to the street. So we're having a big giggle about this. But these activists down in Germany, they are the best activists I have ever seen. And I'm not saying this just because I'm down here. They are warriors. They are soldiers. They approach people in that cube of truth when they stop to look at the screen and see the abuse. And right away, do you think animals should be respected? Do you think you're respecting animals while you're eating them? What if you were in the victim's position? Do you know what the best benefit of being vegan is? It's for them, it's not for you. And it's this wonderful little format. My problem is I've been doing my own thing for so long, I can't get the format down. And the funny thing is, Paul keeps saying to me, he goes, "But Gary, this is your stuff. This is your format." I keep thinking back to School, the Rodney Dangerfield movie. I love old goofy movies. And when he hired Kurt Vonnegut to do a book report on Kurt Vonnegut, and he and he failed, he got an F, and then he's talking to Kurt on the phone. He says, and another thing, Kurt Vonnegut, you don't know the first thing about Kurt Vonnegut. So that's what Paul's like. But Gary, this is all your stuff. I go, I know, but I want to go into baby stealing. I want to challenge them on this. I want to bring up that what if humans were in slaughterhouses? You'd be outraged, and it's not part of the format. But AV is doing some fantastic work. The only other activists I've seen this brilliant would be the Israeli ones. Unfortunately, I've heard over the years they kind of faded, but when I hit Israel in 2012 and 13, they were at the top of the game. They were top shelf activists. So I'm trying to get them rejuvenated as well. And the reason I ended up here is actually cute. I was thinking about going to Frankfurt over the summer. There was somebody I converted there near Rosenfeld who has 7 vegan restaurants. And he always talks about how I changed his life. I created him, and he's got all these vegan joints. So I call him up because he wanted me to come down there, I heard. And I said, don't get excited. I haven't left my house in 10 years, but I'm thinking of coming down there. And of course, he's like, oh my God. I said, calm down. I'm just thinking, can I stay with you? He says, yes. Then Paul, out of the blue, calls me. I haven't talked to Paul in several years, even though we go way back. I've been hidden away. And I say to Paul, so yeah, what do you got going on? He says, I'm going to be in Cologne for 30 days in July, daily demos. I said, of all the gin joints in all the world, you got to be kidding me. I'm thinking of going to Frankfurt. You're going to be in Cologne. So I'm listening to the universe. That's why I came down there. I said, you know what? I'm coming down. Tell all the people down there I'm going to be at the Cube of Truth. And I called up near. I went to Frankfurt at first, and then I did that Sasha Farm fundraiser there at one of his restaurants. And this has just been a great experience. Now I am doing podcast every day, so I'm not doing the full 6 or 7 hours at the Cube of Truth. But if people are coming down there, I'm showing up for the last 2 to 3 hours. And that's probably probably enough for me. I am an old man these days. I'm about to turn 55. I say that, playfully, but sometimes you lose a step, and society, I got to tell you, melted my brain over the years, right? Dealing with this stuff. I was in the trenches for so long. The last year of my lectures in 2014, when arguments arise, and they didn't always arise, I just want to let people know, I average 200 talks a year. Only about 15 to 20 turned into a Jerry Springer show. The vast majority never had a divisive comment, but those Jerry Springer shows built on me. And when they happen, I'd be thinking, how is there an argument? What are we arguing about? I asked you not to rape somebody else, not to steal somebody else's baby, not to mutilate somebody else, and not to murder somebody else. I don't understand. So lost a little brain power along the way. So I'm not as sharp as I used to be, but I'm really enjoying watching the AV people do their stuff. They're a fantastic group, and they're another organization that needs to be supported too. And they do these cubes of truth, man. They every day during the week, it's from 2 o'clock until 8 o'clock, and the weekends are 12 until 7. And they go nonstop. They're really good. I'm really impressed.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to, acknowledge the story you just told, just how there's no coincidences. I'm telling you, that's so cool. And I love the idea that they distilled your methodology. You were like, I didn't even know I had a method. And yet you did apparently without knowing it. And when you do outreach, generally use the Socratic method without even having that label on it, I think to some degree, because you use open-ended questions. And we always say outreach is great when you use just open-ended questions and active listening, even if you don't follow an exact format, which their format is great, but you also sort of riff. Isn't that sort of what you call, like I do that too a little bit when I'm doing, I bounce off, I need their energy. I need I need their questions. I need their comments. And then I can reflect and play off of
Yeah.
that. Is that sort of how you feel
It's
like you
ex
do it?
Exactly. And I didn't have this master plan, which everybody thinks I did. I always hated having meetings and discussions about the meetings and debates about the discussions and a meeting about the debate that we had about the discussion. I went and did things, and then I analyzed it. And I didn't have a master plan. I just knew that I had to do something. So I'm going to urge people to stop planning so much, go do it. See if it works afterward. Big deal. Even if it doesn't work, you still went and did something and you figured something out. You can't figure things out in the boardroom all the time. In fact, I don't like figuring it out any of the time. So I just spoke from the heart too. I got to tell you, I had philosophy professors that would question me during Q&A. They're like, okay, so it's obvious that you studied deontology and you got some Jeremy Bentham in you and this and that. I go, no, never studied philosophy and don't even know what deontology is and don't care. They're like, what do you mean? But you did this and did that. I said, well, if I did this and did that, it's because it came from my heart. And if it matched up with somebody else that you've been studying, it came from his or her heart as well. And that's all this is speaking on behalf of the animals like we would want to be spoken for if we were in their position. And that's what I prided myself in doing. And it's not that I'm this, everybody thinks I'm the Superman. I appreciate all the accolades, but that's not why I did this. I didn't do this for adoration. And I'm really a simple guy from Michigan, honestly. And I was more determined. I'm going to say this word because I've had a lot of haters over the years, which I'm confused about because I was doing so much, 2,660 lectures, 13 arrests, all this stuff that I did. And somebody once emailed me, it was supposed to be an insult, but they said, Gary, you know what? You think you're all high and mighty and you're out there in the spotlight and da da da. The only thing that makes you different is that you're more determined than everybody else. And I was like, okay, is this an insult? Well, okay, yes, I am. And I have been. And that's why I achieved the things that I did achieve. And that's why I reached the people I reached. Determination is a good thing, but it's not like solely possessed by Gary. Everybody can be determined. Everybody can go out and want to do something. You just have to do it. I was a man of action over the years. In fact, when I retired at the end of 2014, the reason I said I was retired because the word activist is sacred to me. I
Mhm.
was on the street corner, in the jailhouse, and in the classroom. And even though I did stuff for the last 10 years, whether it was helping caterpillars become butterflies, about 500 of them, saving skunks that were being drowned in my city by some maniac, or helping out Sasha Farm, for me, it didn't rise to the level of being an activist because of what I used to do. So you just got to get active. That's the root word of activist, active, do something, and everybody can do what I did. Honestly, it was,
Yeah.
and people say, "Oh, you're a great speaker." Okay, fine, but if you ask me to speak about taxes being too high right now, Michelle, I'd be, I don't know what to say about things I don't care about. I care about this, and if you care about this too, you can speak for them. And don't think I wasn't nervous before a lecture or a media interview. Of course I was. I just did some deep breathing and I said, well, if you don't speak for them, then who's going to do it? So you better get over your nervousness. You better get over your shyness. And I'm going to ask everybody to do the same. Even if you are nervous and shy, you can conquer that for them and then go be nervous and shy afterward, which is what I did. Go lock yourself away after, but get out there and do something.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah, we need that reminder and there's a place for everyone in this movement to find your way, to find your groove, to find how you contribute. Most important thing, as you're saying, is to, plan, but don't overthink and, don't get into that when I'm thinking like analysis paralysis, like overthinking
Oh,
in
it's
that way.
horrible.
And yeah, and and turn your compassion into action, not
Don't read so many books. I had a friend that decided not to be my friend because I called her out and I said, how many fucking books are you going to read, man? You read like 100 books on animal rights. You know how many I've read? One. And I didn't even read it all the way through. I skimmed it. Once you got the information, go share it. What's the point of reading 100 books about animal rights for yourself? Well, I mean, and fine if after you're done being active, you want to spend your rest of your day doing that, but that's all she ever did. And then she became mad when I said, when are you going to share that information with others? So, yes, low on the planning, low on the debates and the meetings, and just get out there and do it. You got to do something. Nothing
yeah.
ever got done on this planet unless somebody did something.
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And definitely what you said too, find your groove. You don't want to be a public speaker. I get it. There's other things to do. It doesn't just have to be Gary the public speaker. There's plenty of other things to do. Get on the street, hold a sign, join the AV demos, or start an AV group in your organization. Go to the sanctuary, be a volunteer, be an animal care worker. There are tons of things that people can do, but you just got to do it.
Oh my God, there are so many options. And I think it can be a little overwhelming for beginning activists to realize there really are many options, but that's wonderful. You can dive deeply into the rabbit hole, not to use a species as a term of learning, but it's all, you're right, in the application and the execution. It's some, just kind of facing your fears and getting in there if that's the case. But I wanted to ask you about the value of using footage because AV, footage is like central to their format, but we see footage not just through AV holding monitors, but we come across it. It's traumatizing, it's that secondary trauma that activists endure willingly so that we can be better activists, so we know what's really happening when we see that. But why is it effective? Is there a time when it's not effective? I know you generally say, and I say that footage is really for the meat eaters because it's the first time that they're seeing it. And then I'm like, where the heck does this footage come from? So much more of it. Some of it's undercover, but some of it is these, I guess, in-house cameras. And I'm like, it's so sick. Like they have cameras, I guess, for quality control in the slaughterhouses, watching footage over and over, like somebody's looking at that, like how they're killing the cows right on camera. It's sick and bizarre and like what and weird. Anyway, not to go off on that, but what role do you think footage plays in terms of effective action?
Essential. I don't think we can achieve the goal of animal liberation without showing footage. All of my speeches, I insisted. And if they wouldn't let me show a slaughterhouse video, guess what? There's no speech. Because no matter how graphic I could describe it, and they told me, but Gary, you're so graphic. You don't believe it. Your brain will not let you process the fact that living beings are having their heads chopped off. They will not let you process the screams and the horror that they're going through, being cut up while they're fully conscious. So we have to show this footage. And yes, it is traumatizing. And just so you know, I did 2,660 lectures. I watched that damn slaughterhouse video 2,660 times myself because I wasn't going to walk out of the classroom and make them watch it and think that I was subjecting them to something that I wouldn't watch. Now, I hated seeing this. It was my least favorite part of the speech, but I got to tell you, it was the part of the speech that pumped me up the most, got me angry, got me more determined. In fact, near the end of my lecture, like once I got into my prime in around 2007, 8, after I was doing this solidly for 5 years, I would force myself to riff, to do a freestyle after the slaughterhouse footage. And it was in my head going, just say what's ever on your mind. In fact, the Georgia Tech speech that's gone viral that everybody loves, that was actually a freestyle. That was the first time I said that when I said, right now on American highways, there are 5,000 concentration camp trucks that we've constructed with innocent beings inside. So I would force myself just to let it out and let them have it. And that was the moment where they were most vulnerable too. Because even the difficult students, the majority of the time, backed down at that point. And I saw it in their eyes. And they were like, oh boy, this is pretty brutal. Yeah, what did you think it was? Cartoon caricatures of animals like you're seeing on the TV commercials with McDonald's and Burger King and Wendy's? No, no. This is a house of slaughter. Think about the name House of Slaughter. So it usually brought everybody to their knees. And what was cool, Michelle, is I actually got to see change before my eyes. And there were about 4, 5, 6 stages. When I walked in the classroom, it was arms folded. I heard the snickering. I heard everybody. I should have brought a hamburger here. Got to listen to a fucking vegan today. I should have brought my dad's deer head. Never got mad at anybody beforehand because they were ignorant, just like I used to be, just like we all used to be. And I said, that's okay, because I was saying the same stuff years ago. And then, so they start like this. About 10 minutes in, guess what? Arms became unfolded. All of a sudden, I'm breaking them down. And again, I'm seeing change. I see the body English. And then the slaughterhouse footage is shown at about the 15-minute mark. All of a sudden, a lot of people went one hand up in the air, one arm. And I was told by some psychologists that that's a submissive position. It's like, okay, oh, all right. So went from this open to open. And then I dropped a lot of humor during my speech. As much as I adore Malcolm X, I also adore George Carlin just as much. And I got Larry David and Mel Brooks flowing through my veins. So my speech was a militant comedy roast. That's how I would describe it, because I would push them to the limit and hit them with the slavery and the Holocaust stuff. This is the world's biggest Holocaust. And don't tell me that it's offensive to use that word. In fact, I'm offended that I would never offend the animals by comparing them to human beings. Their Holocaust is a million times worse than any human so-called Holocaust that has ever happened. But I push them to the limits and I see they couldn't take anymore. And then I'd say, hey, but you guys are bird ass fetishists. How come you guys have a bird ass fetish? You got to eat everything that comes out of a hen's ass, and on Thanksgiving, you shove things into a turkey's ass. What in the world is wrong with you guys? You engage in bestiality, you squeeze cow nipples, and then they'd start laughing and giggling because there's truth and sarcasm, which I learned from George Carlin. So I would go back and forth with the humor and the militancy and the speech just ended up working and then by the end of the speech like both arms were up in the air going, okay, I get it, I'm going to change my life, I just have one question: what am I supposed to eat tomorrow? And by the way, that's the question I wanted, because to me, after my speech, that should be the only question you have. Okay, what am I supposed to eat from now on? It was weird when I had those difficult students who did want to argue or did want to use the trite excuses. God says it's okay. What about protein? Animals don't think, they don't feel. You know the routine. It was like, and it proved to me that humans are really robots, right? Programmed, brainwashed. Because no matter which state I was in, 31 different states, a couple different countries, same questions. How could everybody have the same trite comment unless they were brainwashed and force fed that nonsense that humans are supposed to be eating animals? But this lecture tour proved to me that change is possible, that we can actually make a difference as long as we put in the legwork, as long as we go out there and say what needs to be said. And I'll say this too: don't sugarcoat it. Don't play political games. One of the things the professors loved the most about me was that I wasn't a politician. They always told me I never met anybody so open and willing and honest to talk about everything that they believe in. They also said, we never met a real activist. My goodness, we only read about activists. Wow, you went to jail and you freed the mink from the mink farm and you've done all this stuff. People would always tell me, Gary, don't tell them about all the laws that you broke. Don't tell them about the essay you wrote about violence, retaliatory violence. Are you kidding me? That was my intro when I sent them a letter to try to get into their class, because I didn't want secrets. I didn't want them to find out something later on and felt like I was pulling the fast one on them. No, be open, be honest. You'd be surprised at the traction you can get from using honesty. If you think anybody's going to listen more because you say plant-based, or you say I'm an animal advocate instead of a vegan liberation activist, which is what I used to say, it's not going to work, because they just think you're a politician and you're BSing them. In fact, there was that part in the speech where I said, I'm not a politician. I got no books to sell you. I never collected people's emails, and the lectures were free. And there were so many things working for me for this lecture tour. But again, I created it. And it wasn't like I had a master plan or a huge team of people. I just said, I'm gonna start giving lectures. I'm gonna start telling people, I'm gonna start mass emailing professors and say, can I come to your class and talk about this issue? And I always thought that 1 out of 100 would say yes. It was a little better, about 2 or 3 out of 100 professors saying yes. But then once I got into their classes, they would tell their colleagues, man, you got to get this guy. You've never heard somebody speak like this in general, let alone speak about animal rights. And these were non-vegan professors. I was in animal agriculture classes at Ohio State 6 to 8 times a year, 300 future factory farming students. Now, those are my belly of the beast lectures, but I spoke it. I would speak in a slaughterhouse if they let me. This is what I would do for the animals. I didn't like going there. I talk about being hated as soon as I walked in the room. But every time, even the animal ag classes, I'd snatch a few people. They would send me an email a couple weeks later, say, well, Gary, you got 10 people to change their major. Or, hey, Gary, you got 8 people to drop this class and go into something else. So to me, that was a major victory too. But again, I'm just going to keep, going back to do something, get active, get out there, say what needs to be said, and don't sugarcoat it. If it's slavery in your eyes, and it is, say it. If it's murder, it's rape, which is what it is, say it. You're not going to, and everybody that condemns me for being so graphic, I guess the question back is, and I'm not trying to embarrass people, was how many people have you convinced doing it the other way? None. So what are you condemning my way for? But hey, do it, do something. Even if it's your way, just get out there and do something.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if, as you're saying, we keep remembering that we're the mouthpiece. We're we're on behalf of the animals. We're there by proxy. We are representing the animals because they can't be there for themselves, and speak for themselves, and so connecting with your why has you just sort of let it flow and say what they would say, like, hey, stop it. Help me, you idiots.
Yeah.
So, but it's also so interesting that as long as you've been doing this, it gives us a real long view of and how normalized it has always been and continues to be, such that there's these universal fallacies. And I know Earthly Ed talks about that, and Paul Bashir talks about that. It boils down to just a few headings in terms of all the pushback. It's either nature or culture, they say, or health or futility, and I'm sure you're like sick and tired of hearing, and we all do to some degree, but we still, for the millionth time, when someone will say to you, plants have feelings or plants feel pain is one of the most common ones, or lions. What about lions? Lions kill other animals. But maybe give us your quick, like, because you're so good, you've said it so many times, but the way your brain works, it seems when I watch you, is like it's immediately like, here comes the question, the answer. It's like, and you're able to say it, but do you want to give us any of your, I know that's not really conscious so much, right? But what's your quick answers to those two?
I'm using this new one for plants that no one's ever heard. So they've always thrown to us that, well, if a child was drowning and a dog was drowning, who would you save? So I say, so if a dog or a child is drowning and a carrot is floating next to the dog or the baby, who would you save? You're jumping in to save the carrot? Spare me the nonsense. Isn't it funny how all of a sudden people only care about plants when we ask them to start caring about animals? There's so many. Here's something I used to do in the classroom that people don't know. When they would really just hit me with the plant stuff, you got to have a tree nearby. I'd actually say, hang on a second, I'm going to walk outside. I would see a tree. I'd walk outside and I'd kick the tree. And I'd kick the tree again. Then I'd kick it a third time. And I'd walk up to the window and then say, how come nobody ran outside to stop me from kicking this tree? Because if I was kicking a child, if I was kicking a dog, a squirrel, you'd all be screaming at me. Somebody would run outside, hey, stop this man. You know the difference between sentient beings and insentient beings. And it's just absurd. And when it comes to the lion stuff, there's another thing. People only care about what lions do when it comes to dinner time. Well, there's so many other things that lions do that people don't engage in. And by the way, lions don't have cell phones. Lions don't have TV sets. Lions sleep outside naked. I used to tell people, you want to sleep outside with your clothes off and have bugs crawling all in your orifices, you let me know because I'll leave you alone because you're not going to do it. You're not a lion. Stop. And by the way, why do we want to imitate lions? I'd rather imitate a zebra, a giraffe, the herbivore animals. Why are we always picking the carnivore animals that are doing the killing when the herbivore ones are the ones that have achieved a high level of peacefulness that no one else has achieved? I want to imitate the bunny rabbit. I want to imitate all those peaceful beings, the sloth. These are the creatures that we need to be imitating. But again, humans are walking around claiming to be created in the image of God, claiming to know right from wrong and morality. So I'm going to hold everybody to the test, to the fire, and say, if you're going to say this stuff, then I'm going to say what you're doing to billions of innocent beings, stealing their babies, cutting off the beaks of hens while they're fully conscious because you stuff so many inside of one building, you ripping out the testicles of baby pigs. If you're going to do all these evil, devilish, horrible, vile, and vicious things, you don't get to walk around saying I'm created in the image of God, because that's the image of the devil. That's devilish stuff. In fact, one time at Valley Forge Christian College, when I was having the whole God argument, this was a riff. This might have been one of my best riffs ever. I was winning them over, losing them because we were playing a scriptural game, and I became a Bible expert over the years because I had to deal with people. So I'm saying a nice scripture, Hosea 2:18. In that day, I will make a covenant with the animals, bow and sword and battle I will abolish, so all may lay down in safety. And then they would use their scripture. We go back and forth. So I can be dramatic, as you know. I walk up to the room as I was losing them, and I put my hands up, closed my eyes for about 45 seconds because I wanted them to shut up. And I hear them snickering, what's he doing? What's this guy doing? They finally shut up. And in my head, all I knew was I was going to come up with every horrible thing I can think of. And I was going to preface each description by saying, if God says it's okay. Now, I want you to know, I didn't know how it was going to end. I just knew I was speaking for the animals and I would end up in the right spot. It went on for 3 minutes, top of my lungs. If God says it's okay that we beat elephants in the circus, if God says it's okay that we cut beaks off of the hens, if God, so everything, 3 minutes, if God says it's okay, then what does the devil do? Boy, did they freeze. And instantly I said to my, like, wow, that's a good one. Don't forget this one, man. And in the corner of the room, the Reverend Bruce Marino was there. And he's got his arms crossed and he says, everybody give Gary a round of applause. A little light always shed, a little fire always sheds some light on the darkness. And I had a lot of success at Valley Forge Christian College, but the plant stuff, this is always easy stuff to argue. In fact, I just released a bunch of plant stuff on my Instagram account, Real Gary Yourofsky. What was this morning when I all of a sudden I can't remember, the brain is melted, I can't work. It could have been the barn fire one, or that might be tomorrow's. I'm giving you a sneak peek. But the barn fire one I'm going to release is, how come whenever you hear about a barn fire, nobody thinks the victims are cauliflower and corn on the cob? It's either horses or it's the firefighters or it's the cows. Nobody ever thinks that. Or how about this? Here's a simple one. If plants and animals are one and the same, how come farmers never refer to the crops as livestock?
Right.
It's an absurd, ridiculous notion. And listen, it's not that I don't think trees are very cool and succulents and aloe. I got a bunch of plants at home and I really like them. But there is no central nervous system. Animals have a central nervous system. Yes, plants respond to stimuli. Of course they do. They need sunlight, they need water, okay? But they're still not feeling in the same way. And if people really are concerned about plants, which they're not, I also don't like this because it's disingenuous. People that bring this up, nobody gives a shit about plants, just like they don't give a shit about cows, pigs, chickens, and turkeys, right?
No, they're trying to catch you in a gotcha
Right.
moment.
It's always the guy.
They
Yeah.
want to be able to get you to admit you're a
Right.
hypocrite.
Yeah. And it's just such nonsense that they don't even care about that. Or how about when they bring up the crops? Oh, well, the animals die when you get the crops. Well, hold up. Animals die for you when you get the crops because, first of all, the animals you're eating eat most of the corn, wheat, oats, and soy, and you also eat fruits and vegetables. And with everything being equal, we're causing the same amount of pain, and we both drive cars. We both live in houses or apartments. So we're all causing the same amount of pain on this earth, but vegans still are better than non-vegans because we take an extra step and say, but we're not going to harm cows, pigs, chickens, and turkeys, the most abused and most oppressed beings on this planet. So vegans always go a step further. And I would always have to point out to students, I didn't come in here and condemn you for driving cars because I didn't want to be a hypocrite myself. I didn't condemn you for using air conditioning. I use it too. I'm condemning you for something that I am no longer doing. So vegans need to keep that in mind when people argue and try to catch us in a gotcha moment. Hey, I'm just asking you to do something that I'm not doing because I know that you're capable because I'm not doing it.
Mm.
So, keep to the topic. And sometimes the plant people are extra difficult for no reason. And sometimes people are unreachable. But you can use that carrot or the tomato drowning stuff as kind of a quick one that disarms people. And by the way, here's a serious thing just in general that I just started using on the streets here in Cologne for the AV demos. I came up with this on the flight down here. I said, I just want to explain how evil baby stealing is. Because, Michelle, the more I think about it, the worst thing that we do to animals is not the slaughterhouse, it's the stealing of babies. Black woman, white woman, Asian woman, Hispanic woman. They're pregnant, they give birth. Whose baby is it? Theirs, of course. And everybody will say, theirs, of course. All of a sudden, a cow, pig, chicken, or turkey has a baby. Whose baby is it? The meat eaters? The meat industries? You want to talk about an injustice? A monumental injustice? Of all injustices, stealing somebody else's babies, and humans think we're moral creatures? That we actually have a conscience? Now, I'm searching for human consciousness. I haven't found it. I haven't found it, and which has caused me to lose a lot of faith lately too. But uh, and there are some people that are getting it, but not enough. Not enough people.
Mm. Yeah, oh my gosh, absolutely. So thank you for that because there was teaching, there was good education for activists in everything you're sharing for us to even get sort of reminded, but maybe for the first time, sometimes activists are hearing, and we borrow each other's words. And, often we build upon, we listen to the folks who are doing it really well and seem to have masters it, and we build on that. And like what you're saying, take a little science, a little education, and find your way of responding and practice, practice, practice. But for you, the X factor when you can make people's eyes open is it has to be compelling, your answer, and it has to be evocative in some ways. It has to evoke emotion, empathy.
And emotion is a good thing. You hear this a lot. Oh, Gary, don't be emotional. Oh, Michelle, don't be so emotional. You know why
Oh,
people say that? Because emotion works. They're trying to trick you. You don't think Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech was emotional? It was 100% emotional. You don't think the activism of Nelson Mandela and Cesar Chavez and Gandhi and
of course.
Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass was all emotion? It was pure emotion. Emotion works. Also, I want to help activists with this. Don't ever think a meat, dairy, or egg eater has a point. They never do. Because if they did, that would mean animals deserve the oppression and the exploitation that we're hurling on them. So, what your job is, and what I figured out early on, my job was figure out the lie. What are they lying about? Where's the misinformation? Where's the disinformation? I'm listening, boom, there it is. Figure it out. Trust me, they're wrong 100% of the time. I never heard one valid point from a meat, dairy, or egg eater. Never. Doesn't exist. It's all stupid. No matter how compelling it might sound, and to me, it never sounded compelling. And here's something else I would never do because I talked about not sugarcoating. Sometimes people say when somebody asks a question, you should say, "Oh, that's a good question." You know what I would say? Well, that's a stupid question. Let me explain to you why. I don't compliment people that are idiotic, that are mean and vicious and vile. You wouldn't compliment a child molester if he tried to explain to you why it would be okay to rape a child. You wouldn't compliment a domestic abuser if he told you, well, sometimes my wife needs to be punched in the face every Friday. Don't compliment somebody who's taking advantage of animals and killing them and stealing their babies. So yeah, just attack them back. Now, not everything has to be with venom. I don't want to misconstrue this either. And most of my stuff was non-venomous. But I always gave what I got. So if you ask me a serious question, I gave you a serious answer. You asked me a sarcastic question, you got a truthful answer, but it was sarcastic, a lot more humor. I would make fun of them for being, for having a bird ass fetish or things like that. So give what you get. This taking the higher road thing, I don't think it's necessary. It's a cute notion, but taking the higher road with a bully, with somebody who's vicious and vile, I don't think that's the best tactic. I think speaking the truth is always the best tactic out there.
Well, and sometimes, well, obviously people need a little shock value because
Well,
they're so asleep and numbed and unconscious that, sometimes doing that and then engaging them more on a meet you in the middle kind of level where you're having a dialogue with them, but maybe at first sort of you need to pierce through so many layers of cognitive dissonance that you have to say something that will make them go, what, what? Wait, what?
one of the comments I got the most from all the people I've converted, and people are saying several 100,000 worldwide, some people are saying millions, is you gave me the kick in the ass that I needed. I can't tell you how many testimonials I have, and they're on my adapt.org website. In fact, I think you could finish reading the Bible before you finished reading all the testimonials I got. And you'll see that phrase, you gave me the kick in the ass. This was the final thing I needed. So yes, you have to give them a harsh dose of reality. The truth is harsh. There's really, to me, no nice way to say the truth. All my lectures
Not
were based,
nice.
yeah, all my lectures
What's
were based
happening to
on peace.
animals? Yeah, it's
But
reality.
I had to tell you it was slavery. I had to tell you this was vile. I had to tell you that if you're walking around eating meat, cheese, milk, and eggs, you're not a ethical individual. You're a horrible individual. You're a Nazi to the animals. That's how they see you. Forget about how I see you. They view you as a Nazi.
We are
And
not.
by the way, I forgot. So the brain doesn't always work well. You asked me about the plant stuff. I was going off on a tangent like I usually do. Also explain to them that at least 50% of all the crops on this planet are used to feed the meat. The
You
animals
really
and the
want to
meat.
help the crops.
Yeah, it would still be mean that you would have to be vegan, even if you were really concerned about
Yeah.
plant life, which, by the way, they're disingenuous. They
Yeah,
don't care.
they haven't really thought it through
They
at that
don't care about
point.
anything.
No, they're just throwing spaghetti
Yeah.
against the wall at that point because they're starting to feel their conscience is starting to bother them. But
They're also the same people. I can't tell you how many people who would say, well, why don't you help humans? So what I started saying is, why don't you? You tell me what you're doing. I'm doing my part. Why don't you
yeah,
do something? And guess what? Everybody that said that I should help humans or do something with humans never did a damn thing at all. Just people that sat on the sidelines critiquing those who were in the arena with the blood, sweat, and tears. Just Monday morning quarterbacks. Oh, you should do this and you should do that, but you don't do anything. I should do everything. I have to go save the whole planet. I'm trying to do what I can do. Tell you what, why don't you do something for a change? And it would always silence them. They really didn't have a comeback. Don't be afraid to put people in their places. That was one of my specialties. I put everyone in their place. And
yeah.
again, I came in there wanting to educate, wanting to teach, and that's why I was invited over and over again. I did that. But there was times where those bullies popped up, and guess what? I don't believe love conquers all hate. Sometimes you got to bully a bully. At least I'm going to mess their day up for the rest of the day. That was my goal. Like, you're not going to walk out of here not knowing that somebody doesn't think you're an evil scumbag, and I'm going to tell you about it. But for everyone else, again, the vast majority of people did lop up this information. They they really loved it, and that's why the lectures work so long. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was.
I've heard you say, and I like this, you're telling people what they need to hear versus what they want to hear. Don't, and
Yeah.
Adrian talks about the two not sort of not pandering. But I want to talk more about like what your, street outreach and education based activism, but I want to switch topics for a bit because I want to ask you about certainly it must have reached you about the recent mink release. You have heard, I hope, a little bit, and I was wanted to get your thoughts. Recently, there was a mink farm raid, like really, literally just 2 weeks ago, by ALF, Animal Liberation Front, for those who don't know, from Ton's Mink Farm in Massillon, Ohio, on July 2nd.
Oh
About
yeah.
2,000 minks were liberated, and the communique from the activists themselves through the ALF press office, which is Jerry, who we know, said that the animals deserved their own Independence Day. I love that. So, what did you think when you heard that, given that you liberated and went to jail for it or prison for it, 1,500 minks in Ontario in 1997 and spent 6 months in jail as a result, and you can never return to Canada. Maybe you could describe a little bit about what you saw in terms of, for anyone who doesn't know how these minks are kept in these 10-inch crummy, disgusting wire cages. The wire is underneath their feet. They never, anyway, set foot on the ground, and like the exhilaration, the adrenaline, the exhilaration you must of releasing them, even though you paid the consequence for that. Like that must have been as you heard them and smelled them and saw them go. I mean, I that just makes me cry. Makes me want to cry. So anyway, have you heard about that?
It warms my heart every time I hear about animals being liberated. I
So
think it's the
exciting.
second or third best thing we can ever do. I think education is first, then it's sanctuaries and direct action. I don't know if it's two or three, but those are the top three things to me. Um, Quickest way to liberate an animal, convert someone to veganism or set them free. Now, the consequences can be, harsh, but they live these horrible lives, never tasting freedom, never having sunlight on their skin. They're driven insane, mink so much where they end up going like this. It's called screw neck. And all day long, they go round and round. Now, when I did my liberation back in 97, I was actually warned by a good friend, a great activist, who said, Gary, you should be careful and wear some big gloves. They might attack you. And I remember saying, no, 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 no. They've developed a sense that we've never developed or that we lost because we're so disconnected from nature. I said, there's no way they're going to confuse me with the mink murderer. They're going to know why I'm there. And my job that night was to open up cage after cage. There were two other people that had to cut holes in the perimeter fence. One person was spray painting ALF on the sheds, and one was the getaway driver. So as I'm opening up shed after shed, I'm in the third shed now, and a mink dove out, landed on my chest. I remember leaning back like this, and then I peeked up, and she was on her hind legs, but she was going like this. You know, animals do that. That's how they're thinking and processing. And she was checking me out, and then she jumped off. And I remember putting my hands up, going, "I knew it! I knew she'd know I was the good guy." And there weren't 1,542 mink looking to attack me, as I was warned by some people. There were 1,542 animals looking for the way out. And I remember saying, "Go, go, go. You guys got to go. I can't pick you all up and take you across the street, but there's holes in the fence. Just get across the dirt road. There's a 600-acre field." And I remember a symphony of, of joy screams. A lot of things are cloudy from that night, but I remember the joy of, I can't believe we're out of this cage. And they were out. And I remember opening up cage after cage, and one cage was stuck. I couldn't get it open. So I skipped it, and I kept going down the row, and I'm looking back, and they must be thinking, wait, you can't leave me. And I'm like, I know. And I went and I kicked the hell out of that cage till I broke it, and they finally got out. But I was willing to give my freedom. The five of us went into this event all willing to give our freedom and our lives for the animals. Unfortunately, three of those five never stood true to that claim. They turned state's evidence because I got away that night, and they all pointed towards me. And I'm the one that had to go to the max security detention center. But I'll tell you what, Michelle, I'm no longer mad at those people because it was destiny, it was fate. I was supposed to go to jail because before I went to jail, before the mink liberation, nobody gave a shit what I had to say. And as soon as I come out, after actually before jail, so the liberation happened in 97, jail was 99, 2-year trial. 1997, after I'm arrested, released after 10 days, the media's calling. Teachers start calling. "You want to come to our class and tell us why you went to jail, Mr. Yourofsky, for the animals?" And all of a sudden, this was the path I was supposed to be on. I told the judge in 99, this is the best speech I ever gave, by the way. I know somebody titled the Georgia Tech speech, best speech ever. Actually, people don't know my best speech ever. Only a couple dozen people in the courtroom got to hear it. The speech I gave to the judge, and there was a part where I said, "My presence in this courtroom today is paradoxical. I ask this court, if it is not a crime to torture, enslave, and murder animals, then how can it be a crime to free tortured, enslaved, and soon to be murdered animals?" And I remember that judge, A. Cusinano was his name. He actually went, "I was told by my attorney, Steve Rogan, that morning, he said, they're going to find you guilty today, and they're giving you 3 years in prison, just so you know. They've already decided." And he begged me, "Don't give this speech, Gary. You're going to rile them up." I said, and then back then, people think I'm radical now. If you didn't know me in the 90s, you don't know how radical Gary was. I didn't care about my freedom. I didn't care about giving my life for these animals. I made a promise that I would do both. And I said, "Steve, this speech is being given. You tell him right now I was found guilty. Now I'm giving a speech." He said, "Gary, don't do this." I said, "Do it." I ended up getting 6 months. He leans over after, he said, "I've never seen anybody talk themselves down from a sentence. And I've never seen a judge listen to somebody." I said, "I'm not being a dick, Steve. I'm making a point. Of course he listened. When I speak, you have to listen. If you listen with an open mind, it makes sense. I'm not rambling off things." But I lived the life of a caged animal. In fact, I told him that during the speech. I said, "You are going to intensify my empathy. You think this is a punishment? You're giving me firsthand knowledge of what the animals go through." And when I found myself in that small 6 foot by 12 foot cage, I didn't even know I was doing neurotic things. You know, my cellmate Paul would have to scream, "Gary, would you sit the hell down? You're driving me crazy." And I'd stop. I was pacing back and forth. I didn't know it. I said,
Yeah.
just like the mink round and round with their neck, just like the elephants in the circus swaying back and forth because they're kept in captivity, kept in chains, even though they normally walk 20 to 50 miles a day. So I got to live that life of the caged animal. And 10 days after I got out of prison, I went and did a lockdown, a Civil Disobedience Act, where I chained my neck to my car in front of the Detroit Animal Control Center because they were gassing dogs and cats in the alleyway in a garbage can with a hose hooked up to somebody's muffler and the hose into the can. So I was bringing attention to this. And when they cut me loose finally after an hour, As they cuffed me and walked me past the TV cameras, I remember saying, "Nice try, Canada. Nice try. It's not going to work." We need to be willing to go to great lengths, which is what I was willing to do. Jerry Velasquez was willing to do. I know not everybody is willing to take that major step, but there's enough people that are willing to do this, that are liberating animals in Ohio, that are burning down places of torture, which needs to happen. These places need to be destroyed. And I really wanted, here's a little something, here's a little nugget, Michelle, that nobody knows. I did that act that night for several reasons, giving them a chance at freedom, uh, putting the make murderer out of business. I wanted the judge, if we got caught, to take his gavel and hit it and say, "I cannot find this man guilty for committing a random act of kindness and doing something so noble and magnanimous on behalf of somebody else who deserves it." Unfortunately, that didn't happen. He gave me the trite line, "Well, Gary, it's not that I disagree with what you believe in, but you broke the law and I have to punish you." And in my head, I'm like, "No, no, you don't." You could be the first one that says, "I am not punishing you because this was a noble act." So that mink liberation, man, was it was tremendous. I did some other things along the way. I haven't talked about some of the other things that I didn't get caught for, but that mink liberation definitely was worthwhile. And every single liberation is always 100% worthwhile from the victim's point of view.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, if we were in cages, about to be tortured, have our necks broken, about to be anally electrocuted, about to be injected with toxic chemicals, everybody would be saying, "Man, I hope Gary's coming by tonight to open up this cage and give me a chance at freedom." And that's all I did. Keep in mind, I could not take those animals across the street, but you'd want the same chance. I would say, make a break for it. Run, go, go. Good news was 540 mink did escape the grounds that night, never to be tortured and never to have their necks broken. Unfortunately, 1,000 did not. Again, my heart breaks for them, but all I can do is say, go for it, man. Run, run, run.
Yeah, at least they had a chance.
You got to have it. Yeah, because keep in mind, for the people that are thinking, "Oh, you shouldn't have done that," or, they have zero chance in the mink concentration camp. At
Yeah.
least they had a chance, and that's all sometimes we can do for them. Um,
Mhm. You
uh,
know, and people can, if they want to read more about the recent mink release, they can go on to the, ALF's North American Animal Liberation Front press office, and there's some good stuff there. And a couple of things, Gary, from what you just were sharing. Number one, you would have made an amazing lawyer. Not that you would have done it. Okay. Number two, it reminds me to remind folks that confinement itself is the ultimate cruelty, one of the ultimate cruel confinement alone, never mind the slaughter and all of the other stuff, right? And the exploitation. And zoochosis is that word for what we see because animals in a zoo, the pacing, the circling, the just obsessive compulsive behaviors. And you had just a fraction of that sort of, during that time. And it puts us in their place. And I was going to ask you, since you've been to jail 13 times, how did jail change you? But you're saying, it did help you become even more sensitive, have even more empathy. And is there anything we can do there's a few animal rights activists in jail currently, not that many, but a few at least, right? And how can we offer jail support to them? What can we do? I guess tell their stories. And then do you still recommend civil disobedience? I don't think you do. Or what about direct action and open rescue in terms of where chances of arrest are higher? Do you advise?
I still love direct action. I still think it's valuable. Again, the consequences could be drastic, so you have to prepare yourself for the possibility of going to jail. And don't think that it's necessarily easy. As I talk about this, it was not a great place to be. It was a horribly sterile environment. My brain actually shut down so I can cope with what I was going through. The best thing you can do, though, for the prisoners that are out there, the warriors in this movement, write them a letter, because the only bright spot of every day was when they came around with mail and say, "Hey, Gary, here's 15 pieces of mail. Hey, Gary, here's 20 pieces." I remember I still have a box at home. There must have been 400 people that wrote me around the world, thanking me for what I did, empathizing for what I was going through. And even though I couldn't respond the first 60 days because my brain was shut down on day 60, when they told me they were going to deport me and throw me out of Canada and ban me, my brain came back on, and I spent the next 17 days writing everybody a personal letter back, and everything was working again. I'm like, oh, great. And so that was the highlight. So please send the letter, because listen, when we hear about it, it's time. You're just wasting time, passing time, and time moves slowly when you're confined, which is why it's so horrible for the animals too. It's bad enough to be tormented and confined, but it never stops. It seems like it's endless. And as crazy as it was for me at times when I was pacing and living in this cage, I kept thinking, I'm getting out in a few months. I
Yeah.
can't believe they never get out of this. You telling me that elephant that I saw in the circus in 93, she still, maybe to this day, is still in chains? I still wonder what her life is like, what happened to her, because I made a promise to her and a bunch of other animals. I would give my life for her, and I would tell everybody their plight. And I've been keeping that promise. And it's heartbreaking if you put yourself in the victim's position. So, and in jail was, and jail. So I guess it was kind of funny. On the first day when they found me guilty, I'll give you a quick little cute story. They bring me down to the infirmary, and I'm in militant mode. You got to know militant Gary from the 90s. And I'm ready for a fight. And there's two nurses and a doctor, and they're like, anything we should know about you? I'm like, yeah, I'm vegan. And they're just taking notes. And I'm looking around like, where's the comeback? I said, is that a problem? They're like, no, as long as you tell us when, now before you get there. And I'm confused. I'm like, I'm ready for a fight. And I look on the wall, and there was a poster. It said world diets, kosher, halal, vegetarian, vegan. Canada was wonderful. I'll give Canada props for this, the prison system. They go out of their way to serve vegan food to vegan prisoners. I was going to ask for PB&J. I was going to keep it simple. I just wanted to make sure it was vegan and there was no problems. But they served me tofu and vegetables and veggie chili and veggie dogs. And it was so nice that here's this is funny too. I'm sorry for rambling. I'm a storyteller these days. Uh, Mystery meat. We hear about this in high schools, cafeterias, mystery meat. Well, you should see the mystery meat in prison. So there was this big bad dude, Gordy, that showed up midway through my sentence. He got to do just about whatever he wanted. And one day when we were eating lunch, he calls a guard over. He says, bring the warden down here right now. And they're like, okay, Gordy. So they go and grab the warden. And Gordy picks up the piece of meat, and he says to the warden, what the hell is this? And the warden takes it, and he says, yeah, I don't know. And then Gordy says, Gary's over there eating his vegetables and tofu. Everybody knows what he's eating every day, and we don't know what we're eating. And the warden says, but Gary's vegan. He gets all this other food. He goes, well, then we want to be vegan too. We want vegan food. And they start banging the table. We want vegan food. And I'm sitting there going, oh, if I only had a camera. They're begging and demanding vegan food. This crazy, this revolution that's happening. I did a lot of preaching in jail. A lot of people were interested. The only bad thing about the Canadian system was they wouldn't let you change what you wanted to eat while you were there. You had to announce it beforehand. But they were so kind to me most of the time. I recommend to people, if you're going to do something illegal, do it in Canada. Because if you get busted in America, they ain't going out of their way to serve you vegan food. I got friends in jail. All they're going to say is you need to pick from the buffet. You grab the salad, grab the potatoes, grab whatever there. They're not making you special food, but Canada did go out of their way. And it was a crazy experience. It really was. And I don't regret it. And civil disobedience, you asked about, Michelle, I don't like this tactic anymore. And it's because to me, it's ineffective in this day and age. It had its day, it had its run. It just doesn't do anything anymore, unfortunately. There are a couple things. I don't think sign carrying protests are really effective anymore. I think the abusers of animals have learned to deal with us for the 2, 3, 4 hours that we're going to show up on Fur Free Friday. And instead of getting angry and yelling and screaming or calling the police, they're just like, let them stay out there. They're going to be gone at 6 o'clock anyways. Who cares? So I'm looking for the most effective stuff, and it would be education. something education-based. Now, street protests like AV are doing, that's different than a sign-carrying protest. This is education-based. Direct action is good. So, saving sanctuaries, supporting them is good. I'm not crazy about lobbying. I don't know why people want to pass laws before people understand why those laws need to be passed. And even if you pass a law, who's going to enforce it? I mean, does anybody think if we convince somebody to ban the consumption of meat, cheese, milk, and eggs, that anyone's going to follow it? Anyone's going to enforce it? To me, laws have to come in at the end of a movement. See, people are always looking for shortcuts in this movement. I'm telling you, you can't. There are no shortcuts to an animal liberation movement, to any liberation movement. I mean, it took 400 years to liberate blacks from whites with slavery. It takes hundreds of years of hard work, of forceful protest, of teaching, of lecturing, of violence. I hate to bring this up. I don't say it with glee. It's part of every movement. And I'm not talking stupid, random violence, blowing up a McDonald's. I'm talking busting into a slaughterhouse. You bust into a slaughterhouse, they're the ones committing acts of violence. And we have a right to retaliatory violence and say, no, you drop your weapons. You're the ones cutting people's heads off. You need to stop. The people at the McDonald's are robots. Those are the people I want to talk to. Those are the people I did talk to during my classroom lectures. Those are the ones that can be unbrainwashed and deprogrammed. So people hear me talk about violence over the years and freak out. I'm like, you never even read my essay to let me explain to you or ask me what I meant. You took it out of context. There are rules, and think about all the human social justice movements that have used violence. The Allied forces, when shot Nazis to stop them from killing Jews and gypsies. The real thing, Michelle, is nobody opposes violence. People just oppose who we or who I propose to be violent for. Nobody thinks we should kill on behalf of a chicken or a turkey or a cow. I think the chicken, the turkey, and the cow disagree vehemently. But people say, oh, it's okay to kill on behalf of a Jew, a gypsy, a black person, a woman that's caught in a sex slave trade. And here's something else, too. I noticed that whenever a child molester gets sentenced to prison, people always say the same phrase, I can't wait till Bubba gets a hold of him. What are you wishing for? You think Bubba's going to have a counseling session with him? Or Bubba's going to be violent with him? Bubba's going to do something pretty horrible to him. So people, I hate the double standard that's always thrown at me, the gaslighting. Oh, you support this? You support it too. You just don't think I should say we should do this on behalf of the animals. But I say the animals disagree, because if you're not going to, and by the way, what am I supposed to do when I ask you to stop killing? I mean, back to Pythagoras, this is 2,600 years ago. We've been asking you to leave the animals alone. We've been explaining it eloquently, philosophically, emotionally, every way imaginable. We've done everything that you asked us to do by the books, and you're still doing it. So now what? Because I do think one day there's going to be an armed uprising, and it's going to be justified, and the blame is going to fall solely on the meat, dairy, and egg eater. This is their fault that they won't stop. When is it going to end? And for anybody out there, the meat, dairy, and egg eaters who think, well, just animals don't matter and I'm better than them. I'll even say this, and I've said this to crowds. Okay, fine. You're right. You win. Humans are the kings and queens of the planet, of the universe. We did it. We rule. We dominate everybody. So how about showing some mercy now? When is the mercy when are you gonna ease up on the victims that you've dominated, that you've destroyed, the families that you've destroyed and separated? When is it gonna end? I don't care why you think it should end, if the animals deserve their freedom or if it needs to be because we just need to show mercy. Just, it needs to end. I've had enough. They've had enough. And I've even told a few people, Michelle, over the years, and these are usually the religious people who just can't get off the humans are the most important things in the world thing. And I would say, okay, all right then. I'm a human. Look what it's doing to me. Your fellow human. Look at, I sleep 2 hours a night. Look how stressed out I am. Do it for me then. I'm asking a fellow human, human to human. Stop killing beings that I consider to be my friends and my family members.
Yeah.
It works sometimes. Other times people would actually say no. I had one person scream no at me. I was like, in fact, just that I was on my knees.
Yeah.
I'll get on my knees for the animals. I'll embarrass myself. And I was begging this religious person at Oakland Community College, please, for me, can you do this? And she says no. She said it so harshly. Another student that was watching and listening in comes over and says, how could you say no? This man is on his knees. There's a grown man on his knees. I'm going to do it, Mr. Yourofsky. Okay, you got me. So at least he listened and he changed, but I can't believe the callousness of some people, the hardened heart. How did your heart become so hardened that you don't hear the cries of the animals, that you can't see them for what they are, that you only see a cow as a hamburger or a briefcase? You
Well,
only
that,
see a hen as an egg machine.
yeah, that, and I think sometimes in the moment when people are challenged, it's pride. They get very defensive because pride and ego sort of get in the way because you're right. People will defend this cultural systemic, violence that we live among and people pay for and ingest. So, what, yeah,
I don't know why people become so defiant on this topic either. It's something I'm going to be bringing up as I do more podcasts, especially when I venture out and start debating some meat eaters. Why the defiance with this issue? It's rape, it's slavery, it's baby stealing, it's murder. Of all the things you can be defiant about, really, a sandwich?
yeah,
A sandwich that you don't need,
right.
that is just habit, tradition, and convenience. Stop it. And you know what? Sometimes it takes a little effort to care. Okay, I'm willing to put in that effort so somebody doesn't have to suffer and die for me. Why I don't, and you agree
Yeah.
with all the vegan. Why
Well,
wouldn't you go out of your way on behalf of somebody else who needs it? I
I,
gladly, you know how many times I've been stuck in rural America after a night lecture, didn't realize the whole town closed down at 9 o'clock. The class finishes at 9. I'm like, oh man, I didn't even get dinner. But you know what? I created a dinner. I went to the convenience store. Not my favorite dinner, but hey, there's a bag of cashews, there's a bag of raisins, there's a bag of Ruffles. I mean, I could find there's vegan food everywhere. You can put it together again. Not what I now it wasn't my plan that night, but don't tell me that you can't piece it together. Grab some peanut butter, grab some Ritz crackers. Like, okay, that happens to be vegan too. You'd be surprised too how many things happen to be vegan that you're eating right now. It's not difficult. It only seems difficult because old habits are hard to break, new habits are hard to form. Okay, first 3 months when I went veg, peanut butter and jelly, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I would have done that for the rest of my life, Michelle, because I knew I didn't want to eat my animal friends anymore.
yeah,
So we, again, vegans, magnanimous, noble, going out of their way to do something for somebody else, the true definition of altruism, and the meat, dairy, and egg eater, the true definition of selfishness, egotism,
yeah,
unmerciful beings. That's all they are, is unmerciful. And I've always wondered why the religious crowd that demands mercy,
yeah.
how do you expect to receive mercy if you can't even give it?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's important to understand human psychology to be effective. A little bit of that, that maybe it makes me think because I do therapy with people and therapy, when you are honest with someone about your own woundedness, you have to let your walls down and let yourself be vulnerable in order for that therapy to be effective. And a lot of what we see when we're talking to people about veganism is quite the opposite. They just avoid feeling vulnerable for all the reasons that it's just too much, it's too painful, it's too intense, or they have trauma or whatever it is, but they don't realize that that's the door to freedom. Like that's the door for their own liberation. But I hope, Gary, and I was going to ask you before you just mentioned it, that you do start doing some debates. I'm sure you'll be invited. I will watch every single one of them to see you debate a non-vegan or a meat eater in your way. I will think that it will go well for you, and that's another form of activism, certainly. And
I
I love
definitely
the way
shined. Yeah,
I just
I'm
want to say I
sorry.
love the way you used humor and sarcasm because that's your superpower, as well. And I don't know that that's sort of born into us probably, but maybe we can sort of learn that, but yeah, how we get people to change. That's what we're talking about. How do we get people to decide to finally change?
Humor is a great technique. By the way, I just watched an old clip, or I don't know how old it was, but it was Jamie Logan, the queen of New York City veganism.
Yeah,
She was
she's
debating,
great at the
yeah,
sarcasm.
she's
She's
awesome.
great.
She was debating Piers Morgan. I saw a clip. Now I haven't
Yes,
been
I
watching
saw that.
stuff the last 10 years, and Piers Morgan
I'm
actually
catching
had the
up.
audacity to say, "I've never seen a healthy looking vegan." Jamie was fantastic through this whole clip. Don't get me wrong. The only thing I would have added when he said that, I would have said, "Have you looked in the mirror lately? How fat do you plan on getting?"
Oh my.
And of course he would have laughed. Actually, he would have been mad. Like, are you kidding me? Look at you. You just keep getting fatter and fatter every time I see you. What do you mean you haven't seen a healthy vegan? And then Jamie just should have said, "Look at me, and then look at you. Are you kidding me? You have the audacity." So, but I love a debate. So, a little secret, Michelle, I shine the most when I was confronted. My
Yeah.
Q&A sessions were legendary. When people started challenging me, and I, before they finished, I already had 5 or 10 different answers depending on how they were speaking to me. Again, sarcastic, truthful, serious. And I had this crazy brain, and I could see 10 different answers in my head, ready to pull each one and coming up with new ones as I was thinking and looking at those. So I'm hope some people are trying to get me on Joe Rogan and Sam Harris. I would love to get on those shows. I always think I could convince anybody. It doesn't mean I'm successful. Just my mentality is I could get anybody. Just give me a few minutes with these people. So I would love to get on these shows because again, they don't have a leg to stand on. The whole thing is absurd. Every position they have is just based in absurdity. And for everybody else too, all those meat eaters that just don't want to look in the mirror, why? Why don't you want to better yourself? It's okay to say, "Oh, I didn't know," and it stinks that we all had to do it. I did it too. I know you did it when you found out. I'm like, how dare I call myself an animal lover? What was I doing? Oh my God, Gary! But all I could do was make amends. From here on out, I will make up for it and I will live properly and do what's right. It's okay to admit when you're wrong because you can't know everything. That's what else is perturbing, disturbing about everybody. They think they know everything. How could you know everything? I don't even understand how people. I know everything. No.
Okay, that sounds like Larry David right there.
I'm
There,
sorry.
you're now channeling Larry David right there. How could
So
you not know? You don't know everything.
it's the
Sorry.
Seinfeld, and I
It's
I
the
have the
Seinfeld,
Jewish
isn't it?
I have the Jewish comedic blood
I
every
have
time
that too. The New
Erica.
York
Yeah, every time
Jewish.
Erica would
Yeah.
watch Seinfeld, and she goes, "That's just like you." I said, "It's actually just like Jews. Funny Jews are
Just
like."
like you.
Mel Brooks is like this too. So I love all that stuff. And by the way, I wanted to bring up some old time. You brought up how long it's been going on, this abuse. I think you did that earlier. So I'm really interested in where certain comedians learn their style from. And I always loved Johnny Carson when I was growing up. And I realized that as somebody told me that he really liked Jack Benny, who was hysterical. So I was showing Erica some old Jack Benny clips from the 40s and 50s. Hysterical. We're laughing. It's still funny to this day. But here's the horrible part. They had live commercials back then. We just watched this hysterical skit where we're near tears. And all of a sudden it was happy cows give good milk. And I went, oh my God, I forgot how far back this lie goes. They were doing happy cow ads in the 50s, and we wonder why they're so brainwashed to think that cows want to give milk or that they naturally give milk. Do you know that how many people in the crowd when I brought up that whole section that a mother that a
Yeah.
cow has to be pregnant to give milk, their eyes popped out of their heads like, really? Like, and listen, I gotta admit, I'm not sure I understood that either before I became vegan. We think that cows just naturally give milk all the time. Even though we know a mother has to be pregnant, a mother mammal has to be pregnant to produce milk. But all of a sudden with cows, no, cows, that's why they're here. They just give milk all the time and they want to give it.
Milk just pouring out of them all the time.
Yeah.
20%, then we have to help them. It's such a hoax in that way, and
The
greenwashing
lies,
and
the lies are
humane washing.
strong and the lies are deep,
Yeah.
man. And it goes far back. That's the problem. This lie has
Well,
been It's been going
Yeah.
on way too long.
And the media and marketing and advertising are so complicit in all of that. And you're making me remember that one marketing, that ad campaign for milk that was like got milk. Remember that? That was so popular. And
Sure.
that's where that got embedded in people. Got milk with the milk mustache. How funny, how cute. This is mammal secretions of a mother whose baby was stolen on your, but that just I mean, the disconnect is just
They use
epic.
cartoon caricatures to
Yeah.
describe the abuse going on, and then we wonder why
Cartoonized.
when we confront the people, they're in disbelief sometimes. No, come on, Gary. I thought they were all happy, happy cows. No, it's the complete opposite. You want to talk for anyone accusing vegans of lying? You got to be kidding me. Meat, dairy, and egg eaters are the greatest liars I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I mean, they're fantastic liars. The industry, the shit that they come up with, boy, that's some evil stuff that they come up with. I can't even imagine coming up with the stuff that they come up with. And the vivisectionists who come up with the experiments, sometimes I would explain them and they explain them to people and they say, oh, it can't be. I'm like, you think I have an evil mind that I can make up this, that I can make up dipping dogs in kerosene and lighting them on fire to watch what their skin does? The Shriners Burn Institute in Cincinnati does that, or Case Western Reserve doing monkey head transplant experiments. You got to be, you think I came up with that? How does anybody even come up with this stuff? This is how bad animals got it. No matter what we come up with, no matter how vicious and evil, we'll experiment on them. Let's see what happens to them.
Oh my
They got it
God.
the worst. They got it the worst. They always have. And I wish people
Yes.
would understand.
They get the oh
Nobody suffers like the animal
just when we
kingdom.
think it couldn't get any worse, it continues to get worse. But
And this is why I have such a poor view of our species. And I've been more vocal about it lately, and some people don't like it. Are you kidding me? How do you expect me to stand up for a group of beings, a bunch of two-legged devils that are always demanding life, liberty, and happiness, but they refuse to give life, liberty, and happiness to the animals? I'm tired of it. I'm tired of standing up for our species. I will not worship at the altar of humanity anymore. We are a scourge, and we need to be eradicated, to be honest with you. When COVID hit, I can't tell you how excited I was. I'm like, oh my God, 5, 6 billion people are gonna die. This is gonna be great for the earth. A couple million, ain't no pandemic. That was a bad flu. Get out of here. Pandemic. Give me a real pandemic. And again, I don't say it with glee. It might sound funny and humorous. I didn't come into this movement hating humans. I exited hating humans. Humans made me hate humans. I did in 1992, 4 years before I became vegan. You can look it up on YouTube. I had an anti-racism rap. I wanted to be a rapper. Look up my name and the Declaration of Misrepresentation. I started out loving humans. I ended up hating them because of their selfishness, which is going to be the downfall of humankind. Because of the excuses. Why do they make up excuses? I ended most of my speeches with, "What's your excuse now?" And that was a real question because I thought I just answered every single concern you had. That's what I did because that's how I felt when I was back. I had to put myself in their position as I'm coming up with what to say in my head and writing a few things down. I'm like, I got it. I got everything. This is it. And then they still, even though, by the way, I don't want to make 50% of my crowd normally went vegan, which is an amazing ratio. Minimum 15 to 20%, professor said. No matter what, about 15 to 20 always became vegan. But it was hovering around the 50% mark. And you want to talk about a hard social justice movement, a hard social justice sell. In 60 minutes, I had to convince people to be nice to chickens,
yeah.
and it was working. So I know I sound doom and gloom sometimes about our
It's
species,
okay.
but it can work. It's just when I speak doom and gloom, everybody please know 29 years of vegan this month. This is my 29th year this month. Come see me when you've been vegan for 29 years and see the real lack of progress.
Yeah.
I just have lost
You're
a lot of faith.
OG. I totally get that. I totally get that. And let's try to convince people now to get more active because let's use your eloquent way to do that because I was thinking, well, we're stuck here. You and I as humans, are stuck here and we opted into this maybe, I don't know, for the duration and so using you as an influencer. So like what do you say to like quiet activists or introverts about overcoming our fears? I know it's, you know, connecting to the bigger picture, the bigger reason. And um what do you say to people who are not yet vegan or vegans who are not yet active? Or
For
to,
the V, okay.
yeah.
For the vegans who aren't active, you got to get active. Don't get me wrong. I love that you're vegan. I do. I really do. But you got to go teach somebody. You got to reach out. And it doesn't have to be a full lecture tour like mine, 200 talks a year. Reach out somewhere, somehow at the gym, at work, at school. I don't care, whatever you're involved with, you can talk to people. And if people aren't listening, by the way, okay, move on. Especially family and friends, which seem to be the worst and the hardest. And just so you know, Gary's had no success. As many people as I've convinced, never convinced one friend or family member. Give me a room of strangers, I'm wonderful. So don't just get discouraged because your friends and your family won't listen. Go outside that box too. So vegans, you need to be active. For the introverts, you still got to find something. And listen, I didn't grow up with it. We talked about it before the show. The internet wasn't even around when I started my activism in the mid 90s. But hey, I don't understand it, but I guess social media does a lot of things. Well, then, hey, put something online. Keep doing stuff online. Do something. Teach something. Somebody somewhere, right? You got to do something. Without action, we can never make progress. There was another question you had in there. It was a third one. I can't remember.
Well,
Did
yeah,
I answer it?
though pretty much. I mean, vegan
Okay.
people are not yet, well, that's a whole other, but yeah, vegans
Okay.
who are not yet activists, activists who are not yet active, and sort of any tips for facing your fears if you're like a quiet vegan or an introvert?
Yeah. You
You
got to
like what
face
you're
them.
saying, you can be keyboard warriors. That's the
Yeah,
good
do
side of
something.
social media, right? Do
Or
something.
just listen, suck it up. You have to, for them, you have to be in uncomfortable situations at some time in your life. Life can't always be about comfort.
Yeah.
You got to step outside of the box. And listen, it doesn't mean 24/7 outside the box. So, okay, it might just be a couple hours a day. Okay, that still gives you, 20 some odd hours to be an introvert. Just because you're an introvert doesn't mean you have to be introverted 24 hours a day. Just be introverted most of the day then and go out, step outside, say something. In fact, there's a couple people here at the AV Cubes of Truth right now, supreme introverts. They were even afraid to come up and say hi to me, and they were fans of mine. Somebody else had to come up and say that person really would like you to go. I said, I'll go up and say hi. But she was there to, because for the animals, as much as she was afraid to talk to me, she was talking to the crowd. So she stepped out of her, comfort zone. You can do it too. It doesn't take superpowers to step outside of your box. And it doesn't take superpowers to do what I ended up doing. I'm a simple Jewish boy from Oak Park, Michigan. I'm telling you, I love sport. If you guys saw me in my downtime, you'd be like, wait, this is the guy that everyone follows and listens. I'm at home usually in my underwear watching Sports Center or watching Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm reruns. You
Okay.
would be, yeah, I'm not reading philosophy books. I'm not reading Pythagoras. I'm just hanging out. I'm working out every morning at the gym. You see me conversing with all these meatheads at the gym, trying to show them that a vegan can be strong too. But you really wouldn't know that I was this person that accomplished all this stuff. It's not a superpower, as somebody once tried to insult me with. It's determination. Just be determined. Just say today is the day I'm going to speak to two people today. I'm going to speak to 5 people today and say something about why they should be vegan. You can do it. And if we all did our part, just think if we all converted 1 or 2 people,
Right.
think how much quicker animals would obtain their freedom,
Exponentially.
how we
Yeah.
would destroy the industry. And everybody needs to know, I just want to make sure, remember, neither God nor evolution created 1 billion cows on the planet this year. Neither God nor evolution created 40 billion chickens on the planet. This is a business. These animals are mass produced. You'll notice General Motors doesn't make 10 billion cars every year. Now they make as many cars as they think they can sell. This is supply and demand. So when we start converting people, they stop raping animals, they stop impregnating animals, they stop stealing the babies, we can destroy the industry by changing our ways. So this is also why I went to the people. I have pretty much zero faith in the corporations changing much. But when the public demands something and when they change, then the corporations have to follow suit if they want to stay alive and make some money. With that being said, the cell meat industry, though, might be a boon for the animals in the meat, dairy, and egg industries because once they realize how much money they can save by growing flesh in one building and then packaging it up in the next room and sending it out to the grocery stores, they're actually going to start doing that too. But I really wouldn't rely too much on corporations. The people change. When people change, things change.
Yeah, absolutely. A bottom up sort of, instead of top down sort of approach in that way. And I just want to say, as you were sort of speaking to vegans who are on the verge of getting active, we hope that I can speak from personal experience that one of the secondary benefits is that you just grow as a person. You know, it changes us fundamentally when you start speaking up for the animals and fighting for the animals. So it's all good. It's really a win-win, of course, although the animals are our focus and our primary reason for doing this. But it's absolutely a win-win on that level
Yeah.
as well. So
Listen, growing more confidence makes you a better activist. So yeah, it is
yes,
a win-win. Take
it's
it.
absolutely.
Take the side effects of veganism, take the bonuses, but keep your eyes on the prize, keep your eyes on the animals, and it makes you a stronger, more confident person too, or makes you healthier, whatever it is. Enjoy the benefits of it.
So I want to ask you one more question and then we'll wrap up, even though there's always so much more to talk about. But maybe if you could share one animal story, maybe John, I know you mentioned Johnny, the male calf, number 269. If you want to talk a bit about his story, how he became so symbolic for the animal rights movement, or any other, maybe one of the animal folks at Sasha Farm Sanctuary, and we want to remind people to please donate to support Sasha in any way that you can. Is there any or any other words from your heart that you'd like to end with?
Yeah, I just like to, you know what? You can go online, punch my name in, and punch Sasha Farm. I did about 6 videos there around 10 years ago. They're still relevant. Look up the ones. My favorite are belly rubs, where I got a pig to roll over on his belly. Pigs love belly rubs, by the way. And if you get underneath them, no matter how big they are, 3, 4, 5, 600 pounds, they will flip over on their side. And it's so amazing to get this huge creature to sit there for a belly rub. You should look at that one. And the one with Bima, the ox, who I call the 1,500 pound basset hound. I'm sorry, he is the most special cow I've ever known about in my life. There's a video of me kissing him on his nose and petting his face, and he starts purring. I didn't know cows could purr. He was in such joy and a pure blissful state. He was purring. You should check out all the Bema stuff as well. And for Johnny 269, we wanted to bring that up because I always hate, and we always hate that animals aren't given a name. We only know them by a number. They're tagged, they're branded, which is evil in and of itself. As we talked about the horrible things we do, the slaughterhouse is like the fifth worst thing. Being branded, being tagged to me is just being viewed as a number. As property is worse than that. But 269 became a symbol because he was rescued from a concentration camp, and he passed away recently. And he was just such a symbol. He was this enslaved being who gave us hope, who gave his species hope that maybe we can achieve something remarkable on their behalf, that we could liberate all the cows who are being viewed as slaves, as property, as sandwiches and shoes. Um, he made me break down when I heard about it because of what he became, which, by the way, he not that because he's stupid, he didn't even know the beauty that he put out there into the world, that he let people see that I am somebody, I am an individual. I deserve my freedom as much as you deserve yours. I deserve my liberty and my life. I deserve happiness. And he lived a wonderful life at a sanctuary in Israel before he passed away. And everybody should know, again, yeah, 269. A lot of people got tattoos. I get it. I'm not mocking anybody. That's some remarkable stuff. But just know we gave him a name, and his name is Johnny. And it's heartbreaking what we do to all these animals. We don't even know them. We don't
Millions
even
and billions and trillions of Johnnies.
yeah,
Gone. May
especially
they
when you
rest in peace. They're already gone. And
yeah.
right now, as we sit here speaking, right now, more dying right now. How
In
many
America,
a
I think
minute?
25 million land animals are killed every day in America just by the meat, dairy, and egg industry. I was using a bad number. I hear about the marine animals. I used to say 90 billion back in the day. Now they're telling me
More.
it's trillions. You want
Really?
to talk about beings that got it bad? The marine animals got it the worst. In fact, something that I thought of recently, they got it so bad that when we kill them, we actually just add an ing to who they are.
Yeah.
Fishing, whaling, sealing. But when we kill land animals, we don't go deering, pheasanting, cowing, chickening. You want to talk about getting it bad to kill a fish? It's just fishing. We don't say we go hunting for these animals in the water, which is all it is. It's hunting in the water. At least we call it hunting on the land. But the marine animals, we don't even count them. That's how worthless we think they are. We weigh them. So we don't know exactly. Again, I was using
We don't
90
know the
billion.
numbers.
I
That's why
was
they're not
using
thought of as individuals. They're only thought of as
Mhm.
groups because we weigh them by the ton as
and
groups.
and there was a guy I knew through a friend. He was a famous photographer. His name I can't think of right now, but he took the famous picture of the whale with his tail out of the water, and he was down, convinced a trawling ship, a trawler, to let him go down and take pictures. He ends up getting caught in the net.
Ah,
And he described to my friend, he goes, Gary, this is when he became vegan. He wasn't vegan then. He said, I never felt, literally felt so much pain and suffering because I was caught with them, and that's all their bodies were exuding was pain and suffering and being suffocated. And he said he was lucky to get out of it, fought his way out of this net. But I'm telling you, the marine animals suffered just as much. In fact, I'm big on phrases, I'm big on words. That's what I do. We usually say when an asthmatic has an asthma attack, like a fish out of water.
yeah.
And we said, "Oh, really? So you're admitting that they suffer? Because why would that make any sense to me? If you say someone's like a fish out of water, you mean they're suffocating? You're drowning somebody? We drown and suffocate them in our environment like we would in their environment." I'm big on language. I'm big on language too. Look at all the human abuse that's been going on. The George Floyd killing, which was unjust beyond belief, but they once described that killing as killing him like a dog in the street. Well, what does that mean? You mean you had to find somebody who has fewer rights than you do, who's more violated than you are, in order for that analogy to make sense? People admit all the time how horrible you humans are and how horrible animals have it. But then when we confront them about not eating them, all of a sudden they make up excuses, but they use the phrases all the time. It's like it drives you crazy, right? The circle of craziness, the gaslighting that they hurl on us. So yeah, think for a change. Peace begins at the dinner table.
Hmm.
Start thinking about the victims once in a while. Start thinking about how unvaluable your life truly is. And I don't say that in a mean way. I don't think my life is valuable. Nearly every vegan I've ever met feels the same way, which is why we're willing to give our lives for them. We're not special. We're not important. Just include somebody else for a change. It's a noble, magnanimous gesture you can make on behalf of every animal on this planet who deserves the same rights of life and liberty and happiness that you deserve.
Ah, I love that. What a beautiful note to end with, right? To remind us that it's their planet too. So thank you, Gary. To wrap up, I hope you truly let in all the gratitude. I add my personal thanks and thanks on behalf of Animal Activism Collective for your life-saving, world-changing work for innocent animals. You're a voice of reason in a crazy, broken, dystopian realm. Let's keep waking people up. Yes, yes. Thank you, Gary, so, so much.
Thank you, Michelle. I really enjoyed talking with you today.